any way right now feel because of the divisions that are in our society, is that reminiscent to you of the division that was happening before they rounded up a segment of society?
I hate to compare it to the Holocaust, maybe pre-Holocaust, but there definitely is a correlation, right? And what happens is it's step by step. It's first, you do these soft tyranny things.
I live better than a king ever did. I live better than a king. I don't need a thing. I've got a puppy and I've got a car and I've got friends and love in my heart and I've got the Constitution.
Welcome to Freedom Junkie Radio. Freedom Junkies, it's so good to be back. Everything's been a little bit upside down for me lately. And but today my guest is Yehuda Remer. Am I saying that right?
Remer.
Okay. You know what?
Yeah, I'm not that fancy.
Remer.
Yeah, I'm definitely not that fancy.
I thought it sounded awesome. Remer. Okay. Well, and Yehuda goes by the Pew Pew Jew, and you might wonder what that's about. Well, pew pew, right? Guns, pew pew, the Pew Pew Jew. My 15-year-old thinks that's the best name ever. He just said that. Yeah, so your demographic, you're working there for the young kid, the kids like it. And Yehuda is a Second Amendment gun enthusiast extraordinaire, and we're going to talk about why today. He's obviously Jewish, and that has something to do with it. And he even calls himself the Pew Pew Jew. So welcome to Freedom Junkie Radio, Yehuda.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, so you have written children's books about gun safety, right?
I mean, I've written numerous children's books, but yes, my gun safety book was my first book that I came out with. I'm now an author of 8 books. So yeah.
Okay. Well, so I want to get to that. But first, I want to ask you about your enthusiasm. I follow you on Instagram and I see some of your posts and I see you shooting big guns and going out. And last week you were shooting like a flamethrower looking thing.
Yes.
And you're really, you're one of the bigger enthusiasts that I've come across. And I mean, I'm a gun enthusiast, but you take it to another level. And I understand this has something to do with your grandfather at 14 having been a Holocaust survivor.
Well, I mean, that's a small part of it, right? Meaning I live in America, right? So I bleed red, white, and blue. I love this country. And I am a firm believer in the Second Amendment and everything that it stands for. And obviously, coming from a Jewish background, I lost over 60 relatives during the Holocaust. My family would be significantly bigger today. Unfortunately, it's not because of that. Both sets of grandparents actually survived the war. Each have their own incredible story of survival. So being able to understand from firsthand, well, not my firsthand, but someone who experienced the Holocaust firsthand, really bolsters my support and my advocacy for the Second Amendment. So there's a lot of reasons why I'm pro 2A, but obviously my grandparents' story is, or stories, I should say, definitely is God, I can't think of the right word, a inspiration for me to do what I do.
Okay, so I guess the idea being that when a population is disarmed, the people who love the idea of gun control and taking them away, that guns are the problem. But unfortunately, those people have been, we're all brainwashed, right? Tom McDonald just made that apparent this last week. And I know that, because how can we not be? We've all, when I was a kid, the news was something that intelligent, educated people paid attention to. You pay attention to current events, and you're supposed to be able to talk about that. And of course, the newscasters wouldn't lead us astray, that the fact that people are becoming aware of that in a really big way right now. I don't even know why I'm talking about the news right now. I guess it's on my mind. What I wanted to get at was that when that people are brainwashed, and that we all are, and to what degree, hopefully we're waking up to our own brainwashing and recognizing it. But every American and everyone in the world should desire to be armed in a fashion that could keep a tyrannical government from taking over. And I remember talking about this 10 years ago and people looking at me like I had three heads. Because I'm like, your government doesn't do that. Well, historically, governments do. And I just read a book by a Rwandan genocide survivor. And those people had they were sitting ducks. They had nothing.
Right.
And then, so tell me, in the history of between the Germans and the Jews and the Jewish Germans, and then it went on over Europe, but they were pitted against each other. And then was it just the Jews that were disarmed, or was the entire German population disarmed?
No, I mean, Hitler came into power in 1933, and there was a lot of gun laws on the books. He made them stricter. However, he did do something called the Nuremberg laws, which was targeted at Jews. And in essence, at first, the Jews had to register their firearms. And then, right, give or take, beginning of 1938, I believe, or maybe 1937, the Jews had to now, their guns were confiscated. So what would happen is then you have Kristallnacht, which is November of 1938, and that led to the Holocaust. I mean, that led 2 years later, 3 years later, something like that. Yeah, 3-4 years later, that led to in 1942 when they started doing the final solution. So you can go back, and there's a lot of people. I know I just posted something recently. A woman who works for Gabby Gifford's foundation, or Gifford's Courage, I think is his, used a website that was a neo-Nazi website where they wrote an article how basically the myth of gun control in Nazi Germany, and that, like, she's getting it from a neo-Nazi website. And you got to be like, these people can't be that stupid, but she is clearly. But yeah, it's just a thing that, Hitler did come in and confiscate the guns, and before that there was a registry. And
so it was the Jews that had to register their guns and have their guns taken. It wasn't the German population on the whole.
That's a great question. I don't remember exactly if it was the German population as a whole. I do think that there were ways to keep firearms if you were a purebred Aryan, but I don't remember the exact thing. I try to concentrate really on specifically Jewish related Second Amendment things. But yes, in general, there was a big gun registry and then confiscation.
So then that leads me to all of the division that we're feeling now in this country, which, they've just divided us like crazy. But religions, Black, white, men, women, gay, straight, they just divided us in every way imaginable, made up new ways to divide us. And the worst one now being jabbed, unjabbed. And this idea of the others and they are the problem. And I don't know where you stand on that. You and I have never spoken before. So you and I are just having a civil conversation between two strangers. And
right.
So you don't know where I stand on that. You might figure it out pretty quickly. And I don't know where you stand on that. And it doesn't matter to me what other people are doing. But this idea that, we might need to round these people up and separate them from the rest of society. Do you in any way right now feel, because of the divisions that are in our society, is that reminiscent to you of the division that was happening before they rounded up a segment of society?
Yeah, so I definitely, there's a lot of people going around a lot of people comparing to what's going on to the Holocaust. Then there's a lot of people who are upset that people are doing that. Personally, I do see a correlation between the two. Now, I'm not saying we are, I hate to compare it to the Holocaust, maybe pre-Holocaust, but there definitely is a correlation, right? And what happens is it's step by step. It's first, you do these soft tyranny things, something like, oh, you only have to mask up for 2 weeks, and then it goes longer. And now you see, I mean, my parents were here for 3 weeks in July, and they're from LA, and they came here and they loved it because there was no masks and it was fantastic. And then while they were here, I think like 4 days before they left is when Gavin Newsom announced that, there's a new mask mandate, and my parents were just like, oh my God. And look, I am of the belief you want to get the vaccine, get the vaccine. You don't want to get the vaccine, don't get the vaccine. I really don't care. Personally, me, did not get the vaccine, have zero plans of getting it. And you can like me, you can hate me, you can drag me through the mud or not. I really don't care. It will not make a difference to me. I will not lose sleep. However, there is a lot going on that we see right now in this country, that there really is a very stark division amongst everyone. Like you said, right? Men, women, gay, straight, Black, white, Asian, Jew. I mean, doesn't really make a difference. And one thing I do know is that if we don't overcome it, it's going to be a very interesting next few years, as Biden still has another 3.5 years left, which seems like an eternity compared to the fact that he's only been in office for 7 months. So,
yeah, I'd love for us to come up with some solutions. That's something else I love to do on this show, is not just bring up the problems, but bring up potential solutions too for people. Because as united we stand, and the United States, as long as you can remember, it's been the persecuted, the very first immigrants over here were they just wanted to have their own religions, the Puritans or whoever.
right.
And then it's been people from all over different parts of the world, different religions, different, we really are a melting pot. And I know that term might have been pushed like that. I've learned recently that could be almost like a brainwashing technique, but I don't mind it at all. I love the diversity in the United
Absolutely.
States. And Yehuda, you were just talking about where you are. We're both in Texas. Yehuda's in the Dallas area and I'm in the Austin area. And I grew up in Houston, and my friends were everything. I mean, I had friends from Palestine. I had friends from the Jewish friends I've had forever, grown up from second grade on. Still one of my second grade Jewish friends is one of my best friends. Black, Mexican, Asian, definitely a couple of gay people. I don't think they knew they were gay yet, but the rest of us did. And we loved them. I mean, everyone, there's just something about America where I don't think most people are buying the BS about, these people are this way and these people are this way. It's like, no, because I lived down the street from one of them for 10 years and they were great, I mean,
right.
So
well, look,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, look, the NRA show, and look, despite whatever you think about the NRA show this year is in 2 weeks and it's in Houston. I challenge anyone to go to the NRA show and say that the gun industry is, all old white men. I challenge you.
Or white old Christian men.
Yes, white old Christian. I challenge you. You will see such a diverse crowd there. I have friends in the firearms industry who are my core group of friends, who are white, Black, Muslim, transgender, Asian.
Women.
Women. Yeah, no, absolutely. So some of my biggest friends who I look up to, who I ask for advice in the industry on firearms related things, are women, and they are fantastic. And I challenge anyone, if you really want to see what America is all about, go to the NRA show, go to any other kind of firearms show, and you'll see that's what America is.
And we're brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
Well, so I think the way to overcome it is to just not buy it and continue to go out of our way to be open-minded and accepting, and just that's the way everybody I know is. So whenever they've been pushing this for a couple decades now, that there's lots of racism in the United States, and Black people don't like white people, and white people don't like Black people, and I'm like, it is just BS. That just isn't. I don't see it. And I know it exists. I know there's people out there that have fallen for that and that believe it. But well, so speaking of racism, I wanted to ask you too about this, because I've been learning so much this year, and one of the things that has been coming up, obviously, is who is the cabal, the world, the bankers. Excuse me. Who is it that's been brainwashing us and controlling our minds? And it comes up, I'm sure you're aware of this. It's, they'll say, well, it's Jews who own Hollywood. It's Jews. You just rolled your eyes. I love it. I can't wait to ask you my question. Jews who own the media, the 6 main media companies. That's all we get as far as news, and the world banking system. So how does it feel? But then when you hear people say, well, it's the Jews, and I'm like, well, it's not the Jews. It's the cabal. It's the bad guys. It's the 13 families or the Rothschilds or whoever. We don't even know who pulls the strings. Some people might, I don't. You can't lump Jews in with them, because one of my very best friends is Jewish, and she didn't have anything to do with the World Bank or anything. So when that comes up, how can people feel that? Because you are obviously somewhat conservative Jew. You like the Second Amendment. I know that about you. I'm assuming you like the Constitution on the whole.
Yeah, I'm pretty conservative. Yes.
Okay, so take that and just speak to that a little bit, because people do. They're like, oh, well, it's the Jews. They're running the world and causing the problems. What do you say to that?
I tell them they're right and they shouldn't mess with us. I mean, I make it very, very sarcastic. I'm like, oh no, you're right. The Jews do run the world, and you know what? Sucks that you're not Jewish, because you're never going to run the world then. Like, I make a joke out of it. It's ridiculous. Look, I believe like the top 6 CEOs of the biggest banks in the world, like Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, none of them are Jewish. Right, the guys who run the bank. Maybe you have the World Bank, it might be Jewish, but and in terms of Hollywood, okay, good. So you know what? So you have some. Let's say there are, right? Let's take Harvey Weinstein, for example, right? Good. So he's Jewish in name only, right? The guy's a piece of crap scumbag, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can point to a million non-Jews who are piece of crap scumbags also. Like I said, when people bring up the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, I'm like, I know it's one of my favorite books, right? I just, you throw it back in their face and you make them sound stupid. I'm like, why are you lumping people together, right? Look, I struggle. My wife and I live paycheck to paycheck still. We're working hard, trying to support a family. I don't have any white privilege. I don't have any Jewish privilege. It's all BS, right? Everything's individual. Don't lump everybody together because there might be a few bad apples. It's just stupid. And I ridicule these people. I mean, literally, if someone brings up the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, I tell them it's one of my favorite, it's one of my favorite books. When they say Jews are trying to take over the world, when it was a couple of years ago, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene,
Marjorie,
whatever it is, she posted on Facebook or something when there was the California wildfires, that the fires were started by space lasers owned by the Rothschilds, right? This is true. You can look it up. So I came out with a T-shirt that mimics Die Hard, where it says, "Now I have a machine gun, ho ho ho." Mine says, "Now I have a Jewish space laser, oi oi oi." Like I just ridicule it. I make fun of people for being so naive and dumb. And the best is when you're like, "Well, so you're just being anti-Semitic then?" "Oh no, we're not anti-Semitic." I'm like, "Yeah, well, you're spewing anti-Semitic crap. So either shut your mouth or own the fact that you're being anti-Semitic." And they have no answer to that.
Okay, I'm not familiar with the book that you've referred to, The Elders of
Oh,
Zion.
the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. That's basically kind of what started like the whole Jews taking over the world thing. It came out in, I want to say, the late 1800s or maybe early 1900s. Definitely go read about what it is. It was a whole, it's been proven false many times, but there are still people out there who are like, "Oh, the Protocols of the Elders of Zion." I'm like, oh my God, yes, you're right. The Protocols of the Elders of Zion is true. We're trying to take over the world. I'm just a small minion in that world. So,
Okay, well,
you keep
somebody
at it.
is trying to take over the world, and it has. I know it has to do with the World Bank because they've funded both sides of every war. I don't think it matters what they're. Well, some people call them, satanic, and I don't know anything about that either. And if they were obviously, like you said, Jew in name only, because if they were any, from what I gather, the religions are all based in creating a peaceful society and love, what I know of various world religions. And then you get your crazy fanatics or people who try to gain power through their religion and rise, kind of like politicians,
Right.
who cares what religion they came from? They all turn into narcissistic sociopaths, and the rest of us can't relate to them. But if it was I have Swedish background, if it was Swedes that were running the World Bank, and people were like, "Well, it's the Swedes," and I'd be like, "Well, they are Swedish, but I don't want them to control the world and the money supply of the world and enslave us all either." I mean, so it would be hard. I felt like, because and I am announcing my ignorance here. I really don't know much about it, but I know that I've just heard that too. Those same things that you're saying.
I mean, honestly, I don't think about it. Like, if it is Jews, it's not Jews that I know, and not Jews that I would want to have anything to do with. I'm a proud American. I will do whatever it takes to keep America free. I will fight within our borders to make sure that we, follow the Constitution, that we have the right free speech, the right to vote, the right, Second Amendment. That's what I'm going to do. If people are trying to take over the world, I say bring it. If they're trying to take over America, I say good luck.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like I all of these anti-Semitic diatribes and conspiracy theories, I honestly, I don't even waste time in it, because it's ignorant, it's dumb. Like I said, it's very possible that the Rothschilds are taking over the world, right? Or funding it, or whatever it is, or getting it right. And you know what? Those people are going to have a special place in hell then, and I'm okay with that. But like, how is that affect? It's affecting me so roundabout that why am I going to even worry about something like that? No, I'm gonna concentrate on raising my family. Being good to my wife, being good to my children. Love my fellow neighbors as best I can. Help people, do charity. That's what I'm concentrating on. Just being the best person that I can. But at the end of the day, if you come at me with like anti-Semitic crap, I just will ridicule you, because it's just stupid. It's ridiculous. It's something that I've heard time and time again, and it's like, come on, come up with some new conspiracy theories.
Well, I think it's I think the best thing you can do is continue, because you wear your yarmulke. You are a practicing Jew, obviously,
Yes.
and I think it's one. And so it's visible. It's your name. You're holding it out there. You know, you're not just hiding and being like, I'm just going to kind of camouflage myself as an American. No, I'm a Jewish American. You know, that's
Yeah.
and so the fact that you are standing up and with who you are, obviously people are gonna, if they are ignorant about something or whatever, it might show itself. But you're also, I want to say, like, you're making it really apparent that Jews are just as staunchly American and constitutionalist, some Jews like you.
Yeah.
I mean, because there's a lot that fall to the left. And, that's an interesting thing, too. The majority of my Jewish friends are, now I have one who's extraordinarily, but she was just a really big Trump supporter. You can't call her, but she was a liberal always, but then when it came to freedom, that's a liberal idea. Really, everything's gotten all screwy. But the majority of my Jewish friends fall onto the left side of things. And that's curious to me, because it seems that Jews would be very constitutional and would, like you, want to be able to arm themselves. And I don't know, how do you feel about that?
I mean, that question is an entire podcast in itself. But in short, Jews fall in three categories right now in America. And what I'm about to say is not a blanket statement, so I don't want any of your listeners to be like, oh, this is what he said. I'm like cool your jets, it's not a blanket statement type of thing. You have Orthodox Judaism, which I fall under Orthodox Judaism. You have conservative Judaism, which not conservative politically, but religiously. Then you kind of have Reformed Judaism. In a lot of cases, Reformed and conservative Judaism are very similar to cafeteria Catholics, right? They kind of, I don't know if you've ever heard that term, but so cafeteria Catholic is basically, and again, it applies to any religion, but basically it's, here's your religion, but I don't like this, this, and this, so I'm only going to follow that, that, and that, right? It's like going to a cafeteria. I'll take some of this, some of that, but not that. So Orthodox Judaism tends to follow the Old Testament, and we not to say we're perfect, but we try to follow what we follow, even if we don't necessarily agree with it. It's our religion, we do what we do. So in the early 1900s, right, you have tons of American Jews in America, tons of American Jews who lived across the country voting for a Republican governor, but a Democratic mayor, right? Whatever was best for where they lived at that moment. Then you have, you had all these, the Holocaust started happening. I'm sorry, I'm still exhausted. You had the Holocaust started happening, and in the same time, in the 30s, as the Holocaust and Hitler was gaining power, you also had FDR passing the New Deal and the Second New Deal, giving all of these welfare programs. When the Holocaust finished, all of these Jewish immigrants coming over from Europe now came to America with nothing, like not a penny, right? Whatever clothes they were wearing, that was it. And they come to a place where the Democratic Party is like, oh, here's free this, here's free that. Now, again, it's not necessarily free, but it is in a way. It's welfare. For years and years and years, as they're building up their name, they're like, oh, look, they keep doing all these welfare programs. So by the time the 60s, the crazy 60s and the 70s rolled around, you had Jews embedded into the democratic left liberal, mindset. And then they started having kids, and those kids are raised the same way. And that's why you have a lot of conservative and reformed Jews voting left. And that obviously comes to play with firearms, right? Is the fact that a lot of Jews also came over from Europe, and they just saw what firearms did, right? They saw World War II firsthand. They saw what the Nazis did with firearms to their families, you know. So they come to America and they're like, oh, yeah, we do not want to have anything to do with firearms. We've seen enough in our lifetime. And there lies the issue, right? They didn't grasp the idea of the Second Amendment. So you had just a culmination of things that built up to what you see nowadays, and that so many Jews are left-leaning. Now, Orthodox Judaism is interesting because Orthodox Judaism tends to be more Republican. They tend to abide by the Constitution as well. They also tend to be more pro-Second Amendment. However, within being pro-Second Amendment, a lot of them are like, oh yeah, we understand, you know, how important firearms are. We just don't want to have anything to do with them. We don't want them in the house. We're going to call the cops if, God forbid, something happens. Then you have your gun owners, Jewish gun owners, who are closet gun owners, right? They don't want people to know that they're gun owners because Jews tend to be very close-knit. You have a lot of play dates when your kids are younger, and you know, we have our Sabbath, right? On our Sabbath, there's no swimming, there's no going to arcades, there's no playing. It's you just get together with family and friends. So a lot of people don't want to be pariahs in their community by saying like, oh, we don't want to send to that house because that person has guns. So a lot of people are closet gun owners. Then there's the very, very select few who are out there training, vocal about the Second Amendment, calling for Jews to arm themselves and get trained and stuff like that. So it's a very interesting hierarchy.
How did you end up there?
In Texas?
No, as one of those Jews who's very vocal and very.
So that's actually crazy. When I wrote my first book, I don't even know where it is. It's somewhere here. It's that one, this one, right there.
Safety on.
Safety on, yeah. My book, Safety On. When I was married, I had two. I mean, I'm still married, but I was married with two kids at the time, living in LA, where I grew up. And I lived, you know, obviously I didn't live at home anymore. I lived with my wife and kids. And my younger brother once let slip, we were by my parents' house and kind of let slip that, you know, hey, Yehuda, when are we going to go shoot your Glock? And my parents like went pure like Chernobyl, right? Like absolute nuclear disaster meltdown. And what happened is they didn't talk to me for weeks, and they were calling me irresponsible and every other name you can think of that the left might call someone who's a pro-gun with kids in the house. And I was like, you know what? How can I kind of shut my parents up? At the same time, how can I educate my children on firearm safety? So I took out my cell phone, my iPhone, and on my notes, on the note app, I wrote Safety On in about 20 minutes. And I sent it to my buddy who was in the LAPD at the time. And at this point, even though I had a gun, I knew nothing about firearms, nothing. And he kind of sat with me and he tore the book to shreds, constructive criticism, taught me verbiage, lingo, you know, the forced cardinal rules of gun safety. I mean, he taught me everything that I needed to know. And it was fantastic. And it took me 5 years to get the book published. But when I finally got the book published, it went from me being a nobody to all of a sudden all these names in the firearms industry saying, holy crap, there's no books like this on the market.
It was a children's book, right?
It's a children's book. It's geared for ages 6 to 10. And I know plenty of adults that can use it too. But it's geared specifically for children, not for parents on how to talk to your children, for children. Mm-hmm. And one thing led to another, and then I converted it to this one, to a coloring book version. And all of a sudden, it's like people are like, "Oh, we're gonna have gun safety expert Yehuda Remer," and I'm like, "No. I'm just because I wrote a kid's book. I have an editor. She makes me sound much smarter than I am. I'm no expert, but it stuck, and the ball kept rolling and rolling. And then when I was writing this one, This book is called 27 Words, which is a breakdown of the 27 words of the Second Amendment. I was talking to a friend of mine who's a historian, a two-way historian, and he's like, you know, you're kind of like the Pew Pew Jew. And, you know, that little wheel in my head started turning, and I'm like, ooh, I'm going to get a logo, brand that. And I kind of fell into Second Amendment advocacy. I was never planning on being this voice, this part of the big diversity crowd in the gun industry, you know, dealing with magazines and radio and all these personalities. I never even imagined. I was like, hell, I'm never even going to get a book published. And I kind of fell into it. But once the Pew Pew Jew started, I started having people message me on Instagram, on Facebook. When I launched the pewpewjew.com, I was getting emails saying, oh man, it's great to see, you know, a Jew being pro-gun instead of all the ones being anti-gun. And I'm like, wow, I'm kind of having a responsibility now to be this voice for the Jewish community in America. And I still get a lot of hate from Jews saying, hey, you know, you shouldn't be doing this, or, you know, guns are bad, blah, blah, blah. But then overwhelmingly, I have a ton of people. I mean, I sell, let me see, I sell these on my website. Like I sell these on my website. It's like camo yarmulkes.
That's great.
Yeah, so I sell like camo yarmulkes. I have people buying them left and right and texting me saying, hey, we haven't gone to synagogue in like 40 years, but we're going to go this year so we can show our rabbi the yarmulke. And I'm connecting with Jews who, you know, one of the biggest compliments I ever got, there's two guys in my community here, two rabbis who specifically their job is to help with Jews who might not have any connection to Judaism, to kind of bring them back into fold and show them a love for Judaism. And one of them is like, you know, you have to understand what you're doing. He goes, you are bringing Jews in that no other rabbi can touch. And I'm not a rabbi. He's like, we can talk to these people and they'll be like very cordial and nice, but you are actually getting people involved, people who have never had any connection to Judaism, or Jews that have never had any connection. You are bringing them back into the fold. Now, yes, they might not become Orthodox, but the fact that they're willing to put on a yarmulke and, let's say, go to, you know, high holidays once a year because they want to show their rabbi, I'm becoming a voice, and that's kind of how it all happened. It was never a plan.
Well, I love it because what happened was authenticity. That's what happened.
Yes.
You just simply were who you were. You are who you are. And you don't care if people take you or leave you. What else are you going to be? And I think that, and then it starts to take on a life of its own. And so, you know, I just kudos, and that's a weird word to say. I don't ever say kudos. Just massive pats on the backs, big hugs, because you just owned who you are, you know, because I think that that's a lot of, you know, why stand out as a Jew in the Second Amendment community? Well, why not? You know, why not? That's what you are. You're Orthodox Jew, and you love the Constitution. Yeah. You know, I don't know whether you put one of them before the other, God before country or country before, I don't know. But you can't have freedom of religion without, you can't have the First Amendment without the Second. Everything that that Constitution stands for and says, you have these rights. We do. And you know what I'm finding is that as we get more divided and as things get weirder, just like weirder by the day in America and all over the world, people are, I think more and more people are starting to understand the gravity of the Second Amendment.
Yes. Yeah, there a lot of people are waking up now, and it's great to see. It's great to see the problem that people in the gun industry are facing now is we don't care, we're happy to bring you in, train you, educate you. We're happy to do that. But understand that if you are getting a firearms for self-defense and against a tyrannical government, but then you turn around and vote the way you've been voting that got us into this mess, you're kind of defeating the purpose of what you're trying to do. So that's definitely an uphill battle, because you don't want to alienate people by saying, hey, look, we're happy to have you on board, but you need to vote this way. I mean, yes, we want someone to vote for, someone who's a pro 2A, leanings. However, if you're like, well, that person supported Trump, so I can't vote for them. Well, I'm like, well, then what's the point? Like, whether he supports Trump or not, he supports the Second Amendment. So like, why, So it's definitely interesting to see how everything's played out. I deal with this kind of stuff a lot, and it's interesting. It's fun, and I enjoy it.
Well, so the reason that you're so tired is because you have a new baby at home.
I do. Yes, I have a little boy. My third boy, fourth kid, and I think we're finally realizing that he's just really hungry. Well, no, what I mean by that is that, my wife would nurse him, and then we would try to give him a bottle, but like he didn't take a bottle. But my 5-week-old is super spoiled, and he only likes, if we're gonna give him a bottle, it needs to be warmed up. So, well, of course, like who wants cold milk when you can have warm milk?
And you're imitating the boob. The boob is warm milk. Yeah.
Exactly. So it took us, actually, we were trying really hard to figure it out. We changed formulas, we changed this, we did so many things, and then finally my wife is like, you know what, I just talked to my friend, and she said we should try to warm the bottle. And like, we warmed the bottle, and the kid like 2 ounces in like 30 seconds. And so he is sleeping better. He's not crying as much throughout the day. But I mean, look, anyone who's a parent out there knows that even with your fourth child, every child is different. You have to run through those trials to figure out everything. So he's really cute. He's really cuddly. He's got massively fat, mushy cheeks. And but yes, but little by little, I'm getting more sleep, but we're working on it.
Yeah, I don't expect you to be getting a lot of sleep anytime real soon. It takes a while. So
yeah.
Yeah, we were supposed to have this interview a couple weeks ago, and I got really sick, and I never took a test or anything, but I can assume that it was this bioweapon that we spent $191 billion creating. It just makes you so mad when you have it, and it's unbelievable what we have bought, what we were sold and what we bought, and people are waking up in so many different ways. And I think it's interesting that, you mentioned having your guns because of a tyrannical government. And when I used to say that 10 years ago, I ran for Congress as a libertarian, and that was, it was like, why do people need guns? And it's like, well, it's really not. Yeah, it's great to have it to defend yourself. The chances of me needing to carry my gun to defend myself are very, very slim. I doubt I would ever need it. No, I like to use my rights, use them or lose them. And so, carrying, I think, is a great idea. Like I said, chances of needing it are almost nothing. So then why do you need it? Well, it's in case the government, gets out of hand. And people used to think I was crazy. They'd be like, that doesn't happen. And I don't know how I knew at a deep level that, yeah, it does happen. Did it look like it was happening when we had whoever, Bush or Clinton or Obama? Did it look like it was happening? No. But it happens in an instant when all of a sudden they're coming for you. And I read a quote by a Russian I guess, a quarter of Leningrad when Stalin was taking over. And I don't know who they were rounding up. Historically, if you look at Cambodia or Russia, when they round the people up, and no one can believe what's going on. And so they sit back and let it happen because they're like, what's happening, right? They don't catch on. It's the people who they know are liberty-minded who are going to stand up, and it's the educated who can, like, that's typically who goes, the teachers and the professors. And so this quote I read, he said, if we had only taken them out when they were rounding us up, then there wouldn't have been anybody to round everybody else up. They took a quarter of the city of Leningrad and rounded them up. And this is news to me. I mean, all this information is coming out right now because people are thirsty for it and digging it up. And anytime they talk about coming door to door, which they've talked about for giving you the jab, it's like they're talking about going door to door, and they're doing it in other countries, and we're watching it, and all for something that is about like the flu,
Right.
So I this whole idea of, and then last week there was an ad put out. I want to say it was by the CDC, which why anyone listens to this CDC that's not even in elected positions, and why they make decisions, I have no idea. But they put out basically a want ad for people who would want to help round people up and re-educate them. Did you see that?
I did not see that, but that is very interesting.
You can answer the want ad, and you can go become one of those people who would go around and round people up and put them away.
I want to design a poster for my front door that says, "Come at me with the jab, you might just get the stab."
Apparently I don't know if we have free speech anymore. I really just don't know. You can still put it on your front door. You can't put it online. You can't.
Yeah, well,
right.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
I think that our people should go and read our Declaration of Independence right now, because there's some really powerful, important words in there. And I think people are starting to, and it talks about when the government becomes treasonous, and when the government starts to take away your freedoms, when they say you have to do things that they had nothing to do with the Constitution or, our
right.
So it's a really interesting time to be alive and talking and discussing these things. So you are involved in the firearms industry in a way. I mean, you're a spokesperson in a way for the Second Amendment and Second Amendment people, and you're going to go to the NRA meeting in a couple of weeks. Are you seeing a large uptick right now? And I mean, it's apparently Obama was the biggest gun salesman we've ever had,
I mean, no, the last 6 months has been just crazy. Really the last year, 2020 brought in, ammo was hard to come by, certain ammos. I mean, I have a rifle that is chambered in 300 blackout, and you can literally barely get ammo for that. Ammo's hard to come by. You can get ammo, but you can get firearms now. But 6 months ago, 7 months ago, it was super hard. People are buying it left and right off the shelves. There's a great gun store in Austin, but Central Texas Gun Works, I can tell you who is, and he has a bunch of stuff available. South Bend Center, 321 West Bend White Boulevard.
Okay.
So I have no idea where that is.
Okay.
But there's just places everywhere. It's It's crazy.
Yeah, seems like it. I know people who've never owned guns that are now gun owners. And we, like I said, we have a little range on our property, and I have neighbors going, hey, can we come practice shooting our guns? But I never thought would have, been
Yeah,
called that.
absolutely.
So this NRA meeting, what's it going to be like? And when is it and where is it if people want to go?
September 3rd, 4th, 5th. God, I don't even remember. Somewhere in Houston, at some like downtown Houston, probably some center. It's just going to be a bunch of vendors, open to the public. You can go to type in NRA show, and you can just get tickets, and it's definitely fun to walk around.
So it's
and see
mainly a gun
people.
show. It's one of the bigger gun shows, but it's
Yeah, pretty much. But I don't think you can buy anything there. It's just vendors showing off their stuff.
and I suppose the NRA trying to boost their membership and
Yeah, no, of course, that definitely is part of it. So definitely I'll be there Friday and Sunday. So if anyone's there, come find me, and we can chat.
all right. So I think obviously you wrote your book. Well, we'll wrap up here in a little bit, but because I'm like psychologically analyzing why your first book was for children, and it's because you were already answering the naysayers from the other side who say, children are the ones that end up picking up guns and shooting, and it's like, well, no, they don't if they know certain things.
I mean, really, it was a children's book because I had children and I wanted to educate them. And I looked to see if there was a book on the market first. I mean, I was going to go buy a book, but there was nothing on the market. So I was like, all right, I'll write my own book for my kids, and then the rest is history type of thing. So it really was just a matter of there was a need for something, and I filled it.
It's so interesting because I have two boys, and they're 11 and 15 now. But even when they were little and they had Nerf guns, and we were trying to teach them you don't aim guns at people, and I'm like, wait, you're supposed to shoot people with Nerf guns.
Yes.
You're supposed to shoot now, but the BB gun is different over here. You never.
Yes.
So we made that distinction, but we had a lot of friends who did not want their kids playing with Nerf guns. Who didn't? And how much fun is that? We had rubber band guns when I was a kid. It's really fun to shoot someone.
Yeah, no, look, my 5-year-old is my partner in crime. I love all my kids, but my 5-year-old is he is my partner in crime. I can't even begin to tell you how much I love that kid, just because he is like my oldest son is like a sweetheart, an angel. Was always like every parent's dream child. Even at 12 years old, every parent in the community loves him because they're like, he's such a sweet boy. My daughter is a sweetheart, a bit of a diva, but just a sweetheart. And then there's my 5-year-old who is just Satan's spawn, and he's an evil little genius, and he just knows how to nitpick, and he knows he's the kid that, like, my wife and I have talked about, like, we've already come to terms with the fact that he will be in the principal's office every day, and there's nothing we can do about it. Like, that's my 5-year-old, and I love it. He's my mischief kid. But he's the best because he'll be like, hey, daddy, look. And he'll have his Nerf gun up. He's like, look, my finger's off the trigger. I'm like, good job, buddy. And then he just turns around and shoots his brother in the head. I mean, it's fantastic. I love it. So
yeah, look out, new guy. Look out, 5-week-old. You've got that's your older brother.
Yeah, pretty much.
We as gun owners, it was really important for us to educate our children on, you never go and pick up a gun without asking. If you and I think it's really important for kids to know this, even if they aren't from the home of a gun owner, because if you go over to someone else's house and the kid says, hey, let's go look at my dad's gun, the first thing my kid would say is it okay with your parents? And if the kid said, oh yeah, it's fine, he's like, well, I've got to ask.
Yep.
And then we also, whenever our kids, that doesn't ever happen, but if they're ever like, hey, can I see your gun? The answer is always yes. Yes.
Oh, that's you. Oh, absolutely. Oh, I'm so happy you said that. Because that's something that I talk about religiously. I usually carry a firearm even when I'm in my home, right? as long as I'm not in shorts and a t-shirt like I am now, if I'm in jeans, which is what I live in, if I'm in my jeans, the gun's on me. And my 5-year-old always, hey, daddy, can I touch your gun? Daddy, can I? And I never say no. When I clean my guns, I let my kids snake the barrels. I get them part of it. But I'll give it to my 12-year-old, no problems. He finger off the trigger,
He knows not to
point
put
it
his
down.
finger on the
He
trigger.
knows. I mean, even though it's in the holster, but he immediately. I mean, he knows exactly. He is better with firearms than most adults in my community, and I trust him more. He goes shooting with me all the time. He absolutely loves it, and yeah, it's you don't hide the fact that you have firearms. If you hide the fact, it's kind of like, I mean,
The
I'll use
forbidden
Christmas,
fruit.
right? It's like Christmas presents, right? Your kids know you guys bought the Christmas presents. The same thing with Hanukkah presents, right? My kids know we bought them, and they look and try to find them. And like every year, we have to come up with a new place for them to, to hide them. So they know, and it's the same thing with a firearm. If you hide it from them, kids are very, very smart. They will find them, even if they're not looking for them, they will find them. My kids all know where my guns are. They know that's in my safe. Kid doesn't. He doesn't even think twice. He doesn't care. He's like, oh, it's daddy's gun. If I want to see it, all I have to do is ask him.
Right.
He knows not to touch it. And it's a matter of educating them at a very young age. It's the same reason why we tell our toddlers who are 8-9 months crawling, like, don't touch the oven, right? Ovens nowadays have a protective shield on it where it's not hot. It can be 400 degrees in the oven. You can touch the oven. It's not hot. But we still say, oh, no, don't touch it. You're educating them from a young age. I mean, that's really what it is. And a gun is a tool, nothing more. And as long as we educate them, you shouldn't have accidents.
Well, and like you said, I've taught a lot of adults too, particularly my friends, my girlfriends come over and they've never shot a gun before, and I'll teach them. And there's a handful of things, 3 or 4 things that if you do, you cannot accidentally shoot someone. It cannot happen. Right. You don't put your finger on the trigger until you're ready to shoot the gun. Period. Yep. And then, and you never aim it at anyone, obviously. You have to learn how not to cross people, like, the gun cannot accidentally. So if you don't do those 2 things, and every gun is always loaded.
Yep.
Never assume that a gun is not loaded. So what I do is, if, my kids don't ask anymore because it's not novel at all around here. But if they were to say, can I see your gun? I would say, sure, come here. And I'd empty it. And I would hand them the gun. And then I would say, is the gun loaded? And you know what they'll say? Yes. Even though they just saw me.
I agree with you, but 2 different scenarios, right? If my kids ask to see a gun, if my 5-year-old says, oh, can I hold your gun? I'll take the magazine out. I'll take the round out of the chamber. I'll eject the round. I show it to my 5-year-old. Hey, is there any bullets, any rounds in the... I definitely will do that. So it's a bit of a different scenario. I would never show someone a firearm without, even my kids or even friends that come over. Right. I would never show anyone a loaded firearm. Now, yes, treat all guns if they're loaded, hypothetically. But I'm saying an actually loaded firearm. I would never show people a loaded firearm. A great conversation I had at the beginning of the summer with family friends of ours. We were talking about, the difference of, like, what do I consider free? Like the ultimate source of being free. And I told the wife, I said, I don't care about what you think. She's like, wait, what? I'm like, yes, imagine going through life caring about what everyone thinks about you. I said, how are you ever going to be free? She's like, huh. I'm like, me? I said, Hannah, her name's Hannah. I'm like, Hannah, listen. I like you. You and my wife are great friends. Our kids are good friends. We hang out all the time. I'm a gun owner. I love shooting. I take my 9-year-old daughter shooting. If you think that's bad, I don't care. It doesn't make a difference to me what you think about how I raise my children. I said, it doesn't make a difference to me how my parents think I raised my children. I said, when you can get to that point where you just stop caring what everyone thinks and you do you, I said, it's a sense of freedom not many people in this world can say that they have. And it's great.
You know
Yeah.
what? You just solidified something for me, because this is Freedom Junkie Radio. I am all about anything that makes us freer. We are talking about something that obviously makes us freer, and that's 2A. But I've had people on here talking about home birth. Like you can do birth at home. You can be free of the hospital, free of the medical, anything that can bring any type of freedom into our lives. So growing your own food, anything. And you just touched on something I hadn't thought of, Yehuda, and I want to end with that, because that's powerful. You are free from the shackles of caring what people think about
and society.
And I think I kind of am too, but I'm not there in a conscious way like you are. Authenticity, I had a mentor who was like, when you do your podcast, you need to have an alter ego. And I'm like, oh, no. I have worked really hard to figure out this. And
right.
People can take it or leave it, obviously I'm not going to please everybody, that's for sure. And so, and I love that when I see you and I go, that's authentic you, it makes me love you so much more. If I thought you were putting on for me.
Oh, no. I don't do that. Yeah. Have you ever read Ayn Rand's Fountainhead?
No, I have not.
Okay. So I'm a big Ayn Rand fan. Atlas Shrugged changed my life in terms of how I view capitalism in the free market. But the Fountainhead, there's one sentence in the book that began this transformation that I just talked about. And there is the bad guy, so to speak, of the book is this architect critic who writes for a magazine and critiques all these new architectural designs. And the main character, Howard Rourke, is an architect, and he's light years ahead of the whole architectural world, right? His stuff is considered too modern and futuristic, and I think the book takes place in the 30s, so obviously like what we see today, is just, but I think his name was B.F. Skinner, I think is the critic's name. And the entire book, he's just always writing these negative reviews, everything Howard Rourke does. And the book takes place over, like 20, 30 years. And at one point towards the end of the book, Howard Rourke is at a party and the critic turns to him and says, I've basically been trying to ruin your life for 20 years. What do you think of me? And his response was, but I don't think of you. And I read that and I reread it, and I like those 3 sentences, I must have read it like 1,000 times before I moved on to the next page. And that was the point. And this was already 7, 8 years ago. So it's taken me years to get to that, you said that mental state. But it just blew my mind. Here's a guy trying to ruin somebody else's life for 20 years. And the only thing that this guy saw was the future and his view of the future, right? I don't care what you think of me. That doesn't even make a difference. I am free to do what I want to do, how I want to do it. And that was just one of the most eye-opening things I have ever read in my life. And that's what got it started. And to me, the ultimate sense of freedom is being unshackled from society and being able to say, hey, I don't care what you think of me, even in the Jewish community, right? Oh, you're a vocal gun owner. Oh, what, you're calling out other Jews for being anti-gun, anti-Second Amendment? Yeah, well, you're a bad Jew. Okay, I'm a bad Jew. That's going to be between me and God. That's not between me and you. You can say whatever you want. Don't care. At the end of the day, I'm free. and you're not. I'm not trying to impress anybody. I always tell people, I'm like, there's only one person in this world I need to make sure that I'm continuously impressing, and that's my wife. That's it. I don't need to impress anybody else in this world. I just need to make sure my wife is happy with me, and keep on doing things to make her happy. And besides that, obviously I care what my wife thinks about me, because I'm 5'6", a little chubby and bald. So I need my wife to still love me, because if she gets rid of me, I don't know what I'd do. But you know, all jokes aside, it's a sense of freedom that very few people can taste. And look, I'm not going to say that I'm 100% free, right? There's still, I've been fighting it for 6-7 years, and I continue to fight it every day. But every other, you know, the more and more I progress in life, the less and less I care what people think.
You know what? The energy behind what you're saying is so powerful. I feel it here. I feel it in my heart chakra, just opening. This freedom from the shackles or the cage or whatever the prison of caring what other people think, trying to fit into what you think people should want you to, you know, how you should be. That I'm just experiencing that feeling with you right now. And
one second, to keep in mind, I don't mean to cut you off, but keep in mind, I'm not saying go out there and give everyone the finger and say, screw you all, and then be a total a-hole. That's not what I'm saying. Meaning, if someone comes up to me and starts
be yourself, be authentic,
be yourself, and stop caring what people think of you. Still be, you know, we call it a mensch, right? In Judaism, be a mensch, be a gentleman, be polite to people. But if someone says to me, you know, we just really don't like the fact that you do that, I'll be like, I hear you, but I'm gonna do me and you do you. If that's gonna be a problem with you, then don't follow me. You know, I don't talk to me. Don't be my friend. Like, I will never be rude or disrespectful to people, but I'm gonna be me, and you can either like that or hate it. Like that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't want people to think who are might watch this that, you know, are gonna all of a sudden be like, oh wow, the guy's a pure jerk because he just, like, no, be respectful, but you do you, and do it respectfully. And you know, yeah, it's great. I love it. It's so much fun to just be yourself. And you know, I was on a podcast last night, and I warned the the hosts beforehand. I'm like, guys, look, I don't, like, if you ask me a question, like, you might not like the answer. So just, like, understand that. Like, I am not going to hold back on things. Like, you invited me onto your show. This is who I am. So take it or leave it, you know. And they're like, no, be yourself, be yourself. And I was on the podcast with another friend of mine, Mom at Arms. I don't know if you follow them on Instagram. I highly recommend you follow Mom at Arms. I was on her name's Jill, and I was on she was the second guest. And, you know, I was her and I should not be allowed to do anything together, because we are super immature, and we both love to have a very good time. So like I kept throwing jokes out on this podcast, and like the hosts weren't really laughing, but she was dying. And I'm like, look, this is what you paid for, you know what I'm saying? Like, so, but yeah. So sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off before.
So here's the thing. You know, you and I've been talking for an hour, and I know a few things about you, but the thing that endears me the most, and of course I love a lot of the things about you, but is that authenticity that you just explained, you know? And I think that you don't have to try to impress your wife, because she loves you for you. And if I could tell young people
Right.
that, I would, like, don't try to be something that guy is going to think is awesome, or that girl. Don't try, because if they fall in love with what they think you are and then find out 5 years later that that's not who you were, you got trouble. It's like, be
Yeah,
yourself. The right people will come, and the wrong people will go. And so it's
yeah,
very refreshing. You are
it
just
is.
refreshing.
Thank you. And the funny thing is, there are a few people who'll be like, there's no way he's like this in real life. And I will tell you straight out, if you meet me at the NRA show, if you're gonna, I mean, I don't know if you're gonna be there because it's not too far from you,
Oh,
but if you meet me at the NRA show, I am the exact same person you're talking to now. I mean, unless I'm falling on my face with a migraine, which I luckily I woke up with a migraine and I had one till about 1 o'clock today, so I was able to overcome it. I mean, I'm the same energetic, open, friendly. I mean, it's just who I am, and it's just I said,
well, you can
take it or
tell.
leave it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
take it or leave
here I
it.
am doing this. This is like my, I don't know, 17th or 18th interview. And I don't know what people are thinking of me, and I don't care, they'll either listen or not, and whatever. I'm just doing it because I have to. And
Right.
people have told me that I come across as authentic. I think, and I can't tell how I come across, but you can get feedback. And I think when, I wouldn't expect you. I mean, to me, you come across as extraordinarily authentic. I don't, so I would be
Yeah.
shocked if you were like a jerk, or something. That's always
No.
surprising. Yeah. If you were like, oh, yeah. But
No.
well, if there were anything else that you could leave my audience who are freedom lovers, searching for more freedom in their lives, or just anything that you would tell the world, the people who've made it this far, what would it be?
Oh God.
Anything.
I don't know. That's a trick question because there's so much, but like putting you on the spot, like whenever someone does that, it's like all of a sudden your mind is like empty. You're like,
Jelly. Yeah.
yeah, it's
Okay.
like wow. I don't know. Just how about this? Things I talked about. I left them with this last night. Is as a gun owner, someone who works in the Second Amendment world and tries to educate people. If you are a gun owner and someone is coming at you with, hey, I want to buy my first gun, or hey, I want you, can you train me? And this is the same person who's been calling you a gun nut for years. Check your ego at the door. I know that sounds easy, but check your ego at the door. Don't say, aha, oh, now you come to me right when it's getting this bad. Don't do that. At least not initially. I would say get them at a gun range, get them, get them interested in firearms, and maybe once they're involved, once they buy their first gun, then feel free to rip them all you want. Say, hey, remember that time when you used to call me a gun nut, and now look at you. By all means, rip them once you have them, but check that ego at the door, and don't be like, oh, I told you so right at the beginning, because they don't need to hear that. If they're asking you now, it means they're actually worried about something. So do the right thing.
Bring them into the fold. Yeah.
Bring them into the fold. Yeah, like I said, I have friends in the community who for years and years and years they've been calling me a gun nut, and in the last year and a half, I probably armed about 30 or 40 people in my community. And it's just one of those things that, it's so easy to just look down at them and say, told you so. But I didn't. I didn't, just because, it's important. It's important to get more people involved. It's important that more people take their own, their safety into their own hands. They're their own first responder, and it's important that people feel comfortable with that. So checking your ego at the door is so important.
And they humbled themselves. They had been calling you a gun nut, and now they're coming to you going, can you help me? So I mean,
I wish I can say that they were humbling themselves. I think that it was more along the lines of like, oh, haha, we were just joking all these times. Like more people than not make excuses, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, and I'll just say they were humbling themselves too. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, well, Yehuda, I just can't thank you enough for coming on Freedom Junkie Radio. And I look forward to talking to you again. Do you have your own podcast?
It's in the works. Me and my friend Jill, like I said, at Mom at Arms, hopefully we're like I said, we should not be allowed in the same room together.
Which
Just
means
because
you should be together.
which means yeah, we feed off each other, and it's really bad.
Who is she to you?
So she's just a good friend. She runs Mom at Arms. It's a fantastic website that basically single-handedly is taking on Shannon Watts and Moms Demand Action, as well as the Giffords Foundation and all that. And they're doing their stuff is being quoted by like the Firearms Policy Coalition and Stephen Crowder. Their research is just so important. And the woman who started it, this woman Jill, is like I said, she is me just in girl form. So she is awesome. I love her to pieces, and we feed off each other really well. And we both are self-deprecating and don't care what people think about us. So I don't have a podcast yet, but it's in the works.
Okay, well, so tell people what your website or your Instagram, or how people can get in touch with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So across social media, all you have to do is find the Pew Pew Jew. That's PEW. So the Pew Pew Jew. And you can go to thepewpewjew.com, get signed copies of my books. I've got, I don't even know how many fun t-shirts up there, hats, mugs, hoodies, stuff like that.
Okay. And so that's how people can support you too, by buying your merch and your books. And
yes, that would be great.
Okay.
I've got a hungry baby.
Yes. That warm milk. All right. Well, Freedom Junkies, thank you so much for tuning in, and be sure and share this podcast with people and get the word out. Go to the website, freedomjunkieradio.com. You can find me on Instagram. I am on Facebook. I don't use it much. And Telegram is really my favorite place to communicate with people. So we have a Telegram channel, Freedom Junkie Radio, and Freedom Junkie Radio chat. So we've also got merch on freedomjunkieradio.com. You can get really awesome t-shirts and coffee mugs and anything pretty much printed up these days. And, just take your freedom and own it and run with it, because it's yours still. And we have got to maintain that. So till next time, ciao.
I live better than a king ever did. I live better than a